Visitors to Vietnam won't find the South Vietnamese National Military Cemetery listed in any tourist guide and won't see any signs leading to its location. Since Vietnam's fall in 1975, the victors have tried to erase it from both earth and from memory. Yet it remains here, only 18 kilometers northeast of Saigon, and closer still to the hearts of many. Before it was destroyed on 30 April 1975, a large bronze statue of a soldier had sat at the highway entrance. Named THảo iNG, or Mourning Soldier, the soldier's sad pose expressed the sorrow he felt for fallen comrades buried beyond the hill behind him. The sculptor, Nguyen Thanh Tu, had found his inspiration for the statue at a rural shop near the cemetery, where a young airborne soldier was drinking beer with imaginary comrades to whom he had just bid farewell at their funeral. Soon after its dedication in November 1996, stories began to spread of a ghost soldier dressed just like the statue wandering the area at night. He never scared people, he just asked for a drink of water. It is said that he sometimes helped thwart robberies and attacks upon young women in the area. Perhaps the most famous story was about how he saved a battalion of Vietnamese Marines from a North Vietnamese ambush in Tet 1968. In gratitude, the Marines later held a memorial service at the statue. During a trip to Vietnam in 1994, my Vietnamese friend and I paid a visit to the cemetery. We turned in the dirt road and drove to the foot of the hill where the tomb of the unknown soldier stood. It had been off limits to visitors for several years and once had a humiliating sign saying, "Here the puppet army soldiers were punished for their crimes." The sign has since been removed and in the early 1990s the public has been allowed to enter. It was overgrown with brush and the stone facing had been removed.
So I don't know if any other Americans ever came here. Some Americans had...
The body of the unknown soldier had been removed and the tomb desecrated.
Do you have any friends like there? Oh, I don't know.
Leaving the tomb, we drove to the stele at the center of the cemetery.
Do you think America?
From there we saw a number of Vietnamese in the distance paying visits to the grave sites of loved ones, perhaps their fathers, sons, or lovers. We left the city to visit some of the grave sites. Some have been abandoned, having no one to care for them. Many of the gravestones have been defaced. A few had their remains removed and reburied elsewhere, some in foreign countries by overseas Vietnamese. Many others have been carefully tended to. Some families could afford to only clean or whitewash the graves, while more fortunate ones, perhaps overseas Vietnamese, have made improvements to the graves. After visiting the grave sites, we went to a nearby temple. It was built in 1991, apparently funded by overseas Vietnamese. It was perhaps a sign that the government was finally showing the dead a little mercy.
She remember you.
I was here before.
Nó vô cái nền. Lên hai cái đèn, lên xuống hai cái đèn.
The temple was tended by a kindly nun who gave me incense for my offering of prayers to the deceased. I knew none of the men to whom my prayers were offered, but they deserved my respect. I too had been a soldier in the war, and felt a kinship with them, as I do for all soldiers. I was sad that they had been denied respect from the government, but I left with the hope that one day they will receive the honor and respect all soldiers deserve.